And again, I don't know where everybody's located necessarily, and how close in proximity they are to either Columbia. We've got a clinic in Jeff City, Sedalia, Boonville, and Bolivar. The main facilities here in Columbia. Big Tree is a direct primary care clinic. And think of it like as say, a gym membership where you pay a monthly fee and you have unlimited access to the facility. So with Big Tree, you have unlimited access to them 24/7 for virtual care. If again, you can get to a clinic, they guarantee same day appointments. Had to get my son in last week, and I have an app on my phone that makes it very easy to communicate with Big Tree. And I just messaged that, can you get my son in today? And within 2 hours, we had him in the clinic. And so they're very responsive. The app on the phone is fantastic because you can message your care team. So you'll kind of have a specific care team that will be working with you. They get to know you, get to know them. And so kind of think of them as, your own personal 24/7 care team that you have access to, which is going to be basically a nurse and a MD. And a lot of people, once they realize how much they can do virtually, or basically via video chatting, that a lot of times there's not a need to come into the clinic anyway. They can handle that over a video chat or over texting or, phone or whatever. So even with people right here in Columbia, close to clinic, about 80% of the communication with our members is virtual. We have our own pharmacy here, and as part of an employer-sponsored plan, we have 180 medications that you have access to for free. That kind of cover the full gamut of your typical health conditions, antibiotics, birth control, anxiety medications, and of course, blood pressure, cholesterol, and again, kind of the whole gamut on medications. So there's 180 that are free, but again, we're a full pharmacy. We get medications at wholesale for the same price as a Walgreens or CVS. We don't mark them up whatsoever, which is why we're able to give away 180 for free, because medications that you might pay $30 or $40 for at Walgreens, we get for like a buck or $2. Like a Z-Pack cost us $1.42, and the pharmacy, I know last time I got one, it was like $35. So there's medications that are not on the free list. We're still able to get those to you for wholesale, and typically they're going to be dramatically lower than they are if you go to a pharmacy. So Big Tree does preventive care. They do acute care. So acute care is, again, like, you have a sinus infection, you have the flu, those type of things that kind of come and go. So preventive, chronic, they do urgent care. So anything you go to urgent care for, Big Tree can do. And then they also do a lot of things that people go to ER for. They've helped people pass kidney stones on site a number of times. They can handle minor fractures. They do casting. So the medical care that most people need in a given year, Big Tree can handle all that. Okay, they don't do anything major medical. So if it's really like a life-threatening situation where you need to go to the ER, or you have to have surgery at a hospital, they're going to basically in that situation act as your concierge. And they're going to say, this is where you need to go. So if they can't handle it, they're going to help you get to the right facility for the right care as quickly as possible. And they do, a wonderful job of that. So that's just kind of an overview on what Big Tree does. And again, it's just, really unique. I know that I was somebody who said I never go to the doctor's office because part of the reason is it was a pain to go. And so usually if I came down with something, I'd try to fight it myself. Didn't really want to go to urgent care. And I would, generally, if I got rid of something after about a week and a half, just wouldn't go. Or if I couldn't kick it, I ended up going to urgent care after fighting it for, a week or so, and then having to go through all that rigmarole and expense. Now that I know I can access them at any time, it's amazing all the little things that I will reach out to them for. And it's fantastic because I get immediate treatment, immediate response, immediate advice. And so it's a fantastic option in today's healthcare world where a lot of people don't go to get care because they don't have easy access to it. And they know it's going to be expensive. So a lot of times they just don't get the care that they need. So Big Tree is going to be your foundation. You again, kind of look at them as your healthcare quarterback. Most of the time when you reach out to them, they're going to be able to solve your problem. But if they can't, they're going to tell you, where you need to go to get that accomplished. Our Big Tree Plus is a great option for people who are either not really close to approximately close to a Big Tree clinic, or if they have providers that they would like to use outside of Big Tree. And so Big Tree Plus allows you to see providers outside of Big Tree for just a copay. We have nationwide access, so it would be virtually impossible for your physician to be out of network. And if they happen to be out of network, then we're still going to reimburse that provider at 140% of Medicare. And so that's a plan that I have. You get an ID card, just like regular insurance. It has all your copays on it. If you want to see a primary care doc outside of Big Tree, you would pay a $25 copay. Chiropractic is a $25 copay. And then for everything else would be a $50. So $50 for specialists, physical therapy, urgent care, and then also counseling. So Big Tree had a big demand for counseling services. And even though they prescribe basically depression and anxiety medications, and they can, basically give you some basic guidance, they're not counselors. So we wanted to add that benefit to our Big Tree Plus. We did that January 1st. And so you can see a certified counselor up to 10 times a year, and you would just have a $50 office copay. That plan, Big Tree Plus, also all your labs are free. So as long as you go to Quest Diagnostic, which is the largest laboratory in the United States, then your labs will be free for up to 10 visits a year for your labs. You get a free eye exam, free hearing exam. The last cool benefit that we added in January, and here's my card for that as well. It's called Patient with a Y. And this is actually a credit card with a $2,500 credit line with no interest and no fees. And so I have a copy of this on my phone as well that I can present just on my smartphone. That can be used for any out-of-pocket costs whatsoever for medical, dental, vision, and if you have pets, even for veterinary expenses. So we wanted to take care of the animals too, because today people's animals are like the extension of their family. And so again, if you end up having an out-of-pocket exposure, you can put up $2,500 on this card. You have up to 12 months to pay that back off, and there's no interest and no fees whatsoever. So when you utilize that card, you immediately get a message from the company called Patient, and they'll say, hey, how do you want to pay that back? Here's what payments look like over 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, or if you want to stretch it out to a year, this is how much we'll take out of your checking account once a month until it's paid off. If somebody gets in a financial bind, they'll actually go out to 36 months before they'll ever start charging any interest whatsoever. So that can really come in handy if you need to, say, have an MRI or a CAT scan, or you do end up in the ER. That can hopefully pay that up front, and then you have a long period to pay that off in small increments. So that was a lot. Any questions on what we just went over?
Did you say that was interest free for 12 months on that card?
Yes.
Wow, that's a hell of a deal.
It is a hell of a deal. We were really happy to be able to add that to the plan. Patient is also a company based out of Columbia, Missouri. They started about the same time as Big Tree. They've grown dramatically. It's been very successful. And typically they sell that as an employee benefit itself with employers. And the way they recoup the money is through payroll deductions. Well, that puts a little bit more, effort onto the employer or the HR. And so we said, we'd love to have this part of our plan, but we don't want you, involving the employer in any way, shape, or form. So they actually recoup that money by just taking it directly out of the individual's checking account. So the employer is not involved in that transaction whatsoever. We're the first ones they've ever done that with. So we're happy that we were able to pull that off with them.
Are there any co-pays if they go to the Big Tree facility itself?
There
or
is
it
not.
you're going to?
Correct. So if you go to Big Tree, then that's completely no out-of-pocket costs whatsoever. If you could reach out to them every day and you would have no cost whatsoever for Big Tree.
That's one of the things that I was going to bring up, just to make sure that Brian kind of knows exactly where we're talking about it for where the Great Clips locations are. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. So there's one in Moberly, There's 3 in Columbia. There's 1 at Jeff City and then 1 at the lake.
Correct.
Okay. So they would, with the Big Tree Unlimited Plus that we've been talking about, they still would be able to use primary care physicians and at the lake if they, if they've got a relationship with that physician and don't want to have to drive to Jeff City, which would be the closest location if.
Right.
Closer.
Right. So like I said, we have a nationwide network. We actually have 2 nationwide networks that are on the card. It would be very unusual if any provider nationwide would not be in one of those 2 PPO networks. But even if they're not, again, we're still going to pay that physician directly at 140% of Medicare allowable charges, which would be about the same as what they'd be paid if they were in network anyway. And so ultimately, you would still just be out of copay. So that's our Cadillac plan. It's $150 a month. We write a ton of that, especially if people are a little bit outside of the Big Tree facility. The regular Big Tree Unlimited is a $59 membership, and that specifically gives you again access just to the Big Tree facility. So if you saw other providers, then you would be out of pocket that amount. But you can use Big Tree 24/7. Again, for all the care that we talked about, preventive, acute care, urgent care. You have access to pharmacy. Again, the same 180 medications are free on that plan because this is a group scenario. You would just specifically be using Big Tree for your care with again, no out-of-pocket exposure.
Do we have a minimum requirement of participation?
For Big Tree, it's only 2. So if there's a business and we have at least 2 people, then it's considered a business account. And again, that makes all the medications that we talked about, 180 medications free. They will send the business an invoice, and then you do any payroll deductions that you need to do.
And what about Sedera?
Okay, so Sedera is our number 1 choice for, if you will, like an umbrella to go over the top of Big Tree. So any Big Tree memberships, again, even the Big Tree Plus is not going to help you if you end up in the ER or the hospital, or you have something else that's major medical, like again the MRI or the CAT scan. Sedera is a medical share plan. It's technically not insurance, but frankly, it works better. I have Sedera. Everybody at Big Tree has Sedera, and we have hundreds of people that are members of Sedera. And so again, it's a medical share plan. Think of it as kind of like Uber compared to taxi. It basically provides the same type of service, just in basically a more efficient way. And I know personally that any Uber experience that I've had has been better than any taxi experience that I've had. So that's kind of a good analogy with Sedera versus United Healthcare or Blue Cross. They're less expensive. They're easy to work with. You have lower out of pocket. You have no network restrictions whatsoever. You can get care anywhere in the world. It doesn't make any difference. And they've just been absolutely wonderful to work with. The best company. I've been in the business for 30 years in employee benefits. Hands down, the best company I've worked with in 30 years across the board. And so if you end up, if you have Sedera and you end up having a major medical event, which, can happen at any time. If you end up the ER, hospital, you have to have surgery, God forbid you have a catastrophic health issue like cancer, heart attack, organ transplants. Sedera has an unlimited maximum. So again, no matter how large that bill is, Sedera is going to come through. What Sedera does is you're basically, you have a relationship with Sedera. And so then you can have a relationship with any providers that you want, which is why there's no network restrictions. And so let's say you end up in the ER, you're going to present yourself as a cash pay. You don't have to pay anything up front, or don't pay anything up front if you don't have to. If they want something, pay them $50 or $100. And then you're going to submit your medical bills to Sedera, which you can literally take a picture of those with your smartphone, and you'll have your own personal portal, and that's how you communicate with Sedera. Upload your medical bills. Let's say it's a $10,000 ER visit bill, and you have a 500, what we call IUA with Sedera, which means that's your initial insurable amount. So it's basically like a deductible. then Sedera would deposit, in that case, $9,500 into your checking account. So you submit the bills, it's $10,000. They deposit $9,500 in your account because you had a $500 initial insurable amount. So you just owe the $500. As you go to higher IUAs, obviously your premium is going to be a little bit lower. And so they have a $500, they have $1,000, $1,500, $2,500, and a $5,000 IUA. So again, the IUA is basically a per episode deductible. So if you have more than one episode in a plan year, and a plan year is a 12-month cycle, then you could be out, an additional IUA. If you had 3 completely separate major medical episodes where you're out 3 IUAs, then if you have a 4th episode, they completely waive that and it's going to all be paid at 100%. So you can kind of think of your out-of-pocket maximum, whether you be an individual or you have any family members, is going to be 3 times what your initial insurable amount would be. The great thing about it, it's that easy, is your IUA is your out-of-pocket. So there's no additional co-insurance and co-pays and all that terminology with insurance companies that leads to a higher out-of-pocket. And so most insurance plans these days have anywhere from a $5,000 to $8,000 out-of-pocket maximum. Also, on a traditional plan, if you have a condition that happens, let's say in November, and you continue care past the first of the year, then once you hit January, guess what? You have a brand new deductible that you have to meet for that calendar year.
Yep.
With Sedera, for that medical condition, no matter how long the treatment goes for, it's going to just be that one IUA. So somebody develops cancer, again, we've had that situation happen, and they have ongoing treatment for 3 years, then there's only one IUA for the additional time of that health condition, that episode. Sedera is very easy to work with. As far as enrolling, everything is electronic. When you enroll with Sedera, you're going to pick whatever IUA that you want based upon your out-of-pocket tolerance as well as your cost tolerance. And when you're enrolling with Sedera, they're going to ask you, because they do have a pre-existing provision that I want to bring up. So when you're enrolling with Sedera, they're going to ask you in the previous 36 months, what have you been treated for, had symptoms of, what you've had treated, or what you've had major symptoms of in the previous 36 months. And so I always kind of use a herniated disc as an example. If you were diagnosed or had a herniated disc treated, let's say 12 months ago, that's going to be considered a pre-existing condition because it's fallen within the past 36 months. So if you have treatment for that herniated disc in the first 12 months, then there's no funds available from Sedera for that particular pre-existing condition. Once you hit month 13, they're going to provide $25,000 for that pre-existing condition. Once you hit the next year, they're going to provide $50,000, and then it would go to unlimited after that. So they're going to step rate you up over 4 years to get you to unlimited for that particular pre-existing condition. Again, if we have Big Tree, the Big Tree Unlimited or the Big Tree Unlimited Plus, there's no pre-X whatsoever with Big Tree. So in a lot of situations, they can help you manage those pre-existing conditions. But if you're somebody that, has surgery scheduled 6 months from now, then that's going to be a situation where, Sedera is not going to provide funds for that.
Do people have insurance and Sedera? Is that something that's beneficial to them or no?
To have both?
Yeah.
I mean, potentially if, let's say they're on their spouse's plan through their spouse's job,
Right.
If they're offered Sedera through Sports Clips, then yes, there's situations like that, especially if they have a pre-existing condition, then they might stay on that spouse's plan, and then enroll in Sedera and at least get through that first year where then there's money available from Sedera, and then maybe fall off of that.
Gotcha.
Spouse's plan. Yeah. So you can have other coverage in addition. They would just coordinate with each other if something did happen.
Hey, Brian, how does that work if you've got a situation where somebody ends up getting, say that someone ends up getting pregnant? Is that the same thing as far as like a pre-existing condition with Sedera?
Right. On the group, as long as you're not pregnant when you when you enroll, then if you get pregnant the next day, you're fine. If you're pregnant when you go into Sedera, then there are limited funds available. You don't get the full-blown benefit. However, if it's, I don't think this would be the case here, but if you have at least 10 people enroll, then there's no pre-ex whatsoever for pregnancy, even if, you know, you sign up and you deliver the next day. But if nobody's pregnant right now, if you enroll in Sedera, and again, if you turn up, you know, pregnant a week later, then you're fine. You're going to have the full benefits for the maternity. And how maternity works with Sedera is whatever IUA that you select. So if you pick a, you know, 1,000 IUA, for all your maternity expenses, the prenatal, the delivery, the post-delivery, if the child has issues, it's going to be 2 times your IUA that you select. So if you had 1,000 IUA, then your out of pocket would be $2,000, which is lower than your out of pocket would be on any major medical policy I could sell you. You have a higher out of pocket for that for maternity.
So let's just say hypothetically, someone is being treated for something and they're paying out of pocket for it, but they decide to get like the Big Tree Plus with the Sedera. Like, how do they benefit to continue on with any type of care or treatments they've already been paying out of pocket for?
I'm not 100% sure if I'm following you, but let's say again, there is a pre-existing condition that's, you know, Sedera says, okay, we're not going to provide any funds for the first 12 months for that pre-existing condition. That's going to how Sedera is going to handle that. But with Big Tree, there's no pre-ex with them, so they're going to treat that condition if they, you know, if they can, if it's not too advanced, obviously, from day one. And so in a lot of situations, people will say, well, you know, I have high blood pressure or a cholesterol, or maybe I have migraines. Well, Big Tree can handle all those things without a problem. So, you know, usually that's not going to land you in a hospital. Even diabetes. I mean, Big Tree does a really good job of disease management. They're really good with people with diabetes. And so even if you have that, yes, Sedera is going to consider that pre-existing condition. But if you're working with your care team with Big Tree, then hopefully, you know, you should be a really good opportunity for you to not be in the hospital at any time with that diabetes, especially early on. So.
It says 270 for member children. Is that multiple children or just per one kid?
It doesn't matter how many you have them.
Okay.
Right. So it's
So they would pick-
4th year. Yeah. It's employee, spouse, employee, children, and family. Yeah. And the part-timers, if they want to do the $59 plan, you know, or even the virtual plan, which is $44, then they can do that. It's just going to come in on the group invoice, and then they would be just payroll deduct the full amount. But again, you know, the advantage of them is they have access to that. It's going to be payroll deducted versus them having to pay for it out of their own checking account. And then also, since it's a group, it makes that 180 medications free on all the Big Tree plans.
And are they able to like sign up for it at any point in time of the year when they're ready for it, or is there going to be like an enrollment period?
There's, I mean, we, you know, again, like them to make a decision initially and come on, but if they can come on. There's no really specific open enrollment period, so they can come on later if they want to. So yes, the answer to that is yes. Enrollment's super easy. You know, Sedera, you're going to have a specific link for your business. And there's inside of an email, and you know, you just send that email with that link to those employees, the initial ones, as well as any new employees that come on board throughout the year, and they just click on that link and they do their enrollment. And then as employer with Sedera, you get a trial invoice on the 25th of each month for you to look over, make sure it looks correct. And then if it's correct, then they go ahead and then take that out on the first of the month. With Big Tree, you're able actually to go into their system and you can make additions and deletions electronically yourself through the Big Tree system. So both ways, it's very easy to continue to manage it. It's so much easier than dealing with traditional insurance.
But we would still need to have the requirement wise, as far as a group goes, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, have at least 2 people participate in the Big Tree to get that group rate, correct?
To just be considered a group with Sedera, with the Big Tree, we want 2 employees, and you know that just gives you the free meds. So if one employee signed up, then the rates would all be the same. They just wouldn't get the 180 meds for free. We have 2 people in a business, then all the 180 medications become free. If you're on Big Tree Plus, though, it doesn't make any difference. The Big Tree Plus includes free medications, period. So really, yeah, with Big Tree, that shouldn't be an issue. With Sedera's guidelines, they like 5 employees enrolling at initial installment, but they'll let us get away with 3. So if we have at least 3 employees, then we could hold these group rates. So with the group with Sedera, again, you've got a group rate structure, which is better than the individual rate structure. And there's a couple of upgrades that the group plan has, and maternity is one of the big ones, over the individual plan with Sedera. The other thing too is anybody leaves, all this is transferable. So they can keep the Big Tree memberships and everything will remain the same. And with Sedera would just again transfer them from the group product to the individual product. The rate might change a little bit, but overall it's going to be pretty close to the same, and they can just maintain that going forward.
Nice.
We have a great dental and vision plan. We actually went out and copied Guardian's very best dental plan and vision plan that they had in the marketplace. And Guardian's like the top shelf carrier for ancillary benefits like dental and vision. Our dental and vision, you can go anywhere you want to go. There's absolutely no network restrictions. We do have an Aetna network on there that just basically saves us money if that dentist happens to be in that Aetna network, but if they're not, there's no penalty whatsoever. The dental, you basically for your preventive and diagnostics, so every 6 months that's paid at 100%. You have no out-of-pocket cost whatsoever. If you have a basic procedure like a filling, it's going to pay 90% of that. And then something major, which gets into the hardware stuff, the crown, the bridge, the dentures, anything hardware related, let's say, and also oral surgery, then that's going to be paid at 60% as a major service. So it's 100, 90, 60 plan. Most dental plans are 100, 80, 50. So it's much richer on the second and third level, which are the more expensive procedures anyway. Again, you go anywhere you want to go, and you have up to $1,500 in benefit per calendar year. So if we're starting this, May 1st or June 1st, then you have a full $1,500 between now and the end of the year, and then you're going to get another $1,500 reset in January.
So
That's
if I'm
nice
getting
to
all
do
my
everything.
teeth pulled to get dentures, they're covering 60% of that, and the rest of it's coming out of pocket.
Correct.
Oh, nice.
But it's nice to be able to go in every 6 months and just hand them your card. Everything's paid 100%, and you walk out the door and you don't know the $150 or $200 that it costs anymore just to have your normal cleanings and checkups and so forth. And if they do the X-rays, then it might even be $275 if you don't have something to cover that. So in my lifetime, I've been on and off dental coverage, and when I have dental coverage, I go in every 6 months. When they set up my appointment, I show up because it doesn't cost me anything. When I haven't had dental, I end up going like once every 2 years because I just don't want to pay for it. Going in for regular dental treatment is fantastic for your overall health and obviously for your teeth as well. But it's really, there's a lot of medical data that says if you have issues with your mouth, it bleeds down into your body and it causes a lot of issues with your internal organs.
That is very, very accurate.
So having dental coverage and going to the dentist on a regular basis is going to help you in a number of ways long term. And if they're paying for half the cost, our dental it's just $37 for an individual. So if they're paying for half of that, it's a fantastic deal. The vision, so if you have glasses or contacts, and I have both, so I'm on the vision plan. The vision plan is $12, which is, and again, if they pay half of that, that's $6. And so I just went in and had my eye exam and got a year's worth of disposable contacts. And my total out-of-pocket cost was $150, which is great for, full eye exam and a whole year's worth of disposable contacts. So again, you can go anywhere you want to go in the vision. You have a $25 deductible. It pays 90%. And then you have basically a $600 pool of money to spend every calendar year for the vision expenses. So again, if you get enrolled now, you've got 600 to spend between now and the end of the year, and that 600 will reset in January. Then, like, if they're paying 50% of the Sedera, if you did a 2,500 IUA with Sedera, then you're talking $75 for catastrophic major medical protection.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
Yeah. But if you want to do 1,000 IUA, then that the total cost is 187. So what are you looking at? About $90 a month.
Mhm.
Again, that's a
And that
bargain.
IUA, I mean, it's just protecting you and you can handle $2,500 over a period of time. You're just protecting against the big one.
Yeah, and again, if you have Big Tree Plus,
surgery.
you got your $2,500 right here on your card. Just pay
Yeah.
that $2,500 right up front, covers your IUA, and then you can pay that off over 12 months. That works fantastic. So that's one of the reasons that we really wanted that patient benefit, is so people can do a 2,500 IUA to keep their costs minimal and be able to cover that IUA right out of the gate with that card. You can put a whole family on the 2,500 IUA with Sedera for $447 as a total rate. That's lower than the average employee rate, just the employee rate for a Unite or Anthem. So
Yeah.
the rates are fantastic. So the Wheelers that own Big Tree, they were on United Healthcare. They were paying $2,200 a month for their family on a group plan with United Healthcare, and they had about a $6,000 out of pocket exposure. Put them on Sedera. Their rate now is $553 compared to $2,200, and their out of pocket is $1,000 versus $6,000. So in like 3 years, they've calculated between their premium savings and out of pocket savings, because they've used Sedera a number of times. They've saved $60,000 in 3 years. Their daughter had orthoscopic knee surgery that ran about $50,000 total after rehab and everything else. They had the 500 IUA, and on planned surgery, Sedera likes you to do a second opinion, and they have their own second opinion process that they'll run you through. And as long as you go through that, they'll reduce your IUA by $250. So for that $50,000 surgery, they were out $250 total.
Wow.
Yeah, we're on their $2,200 United Healthcare plan. They would have been out $6,000.
Wait a minute. How much did they end up paying after that 50? Out of the 50?
They're $250 was their out of pocket max for a $50,000 orthoscopic knee surgery. I think our first big claim issue with Sedera was a 25-year-old chiropractor who was in perfectly good health, and he got sick, came into Big Tree, and he had an infection, and so they gave him antibiotics. Didn't phase it, came back in again. He was sicker, and they said, I think you really need to get to the ER. And so he ended up going to University Hospital. Again, he presented himself as cash pay. They didn't have any problem. I think he paid $50 down. He ended up in the ICU for like 7 or 8 days, being infused with high power antibiotics. And his total bill after Sedera negotiated with the hospital was $65,000. And so they deposited $64,500 in his checking account, and then he paid the University Hospital. But there's a 25-year-old guy, never been, in the hospital before, just came down with this weird infection and ended up getting into his internal organs, and it became life-threatening. And thank God, he had Sedera. But those, that's anything can happen at any time. So
Can the employee have just Sedera or they can have just Big Tree, but do they have to have Big Tree to get Sedera or no?
They don't have to, but their rate will be higher with Sedera if they don't. So Sedera reduces their rates right up 15% if you have a Big Tree membership of any kind. So whether it be virtual, the $59 plan or the $150 plan, your rates are going to be 15% lower when you enroll in Sedera.
Gotcha.
I would say, it's more common to have like a 60 to 90-day probationary period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can pick whatever you want, but I would, my history, 60 to 90 days is a very common probationary period. All this information I'm talking about, we can send to you in an email. And in that email, there's a link to watch an 8-minute video on Sedera. And so instead of like trying to read through the material, they can watch that 8-minute video, and it'll take them all the way through how Sedera works. The pre-existing, they're out of pocket, and they do it in a really nice, just 8-minute video.
Can we do you have to start at the beginning of the month, or can you start mid-month, or?
It's going to be beginning of the month
Okay.
for Sedera and the big tree plans. Yeah, big tree, we can literally, as long as we get those apps in the last day of the month, we can make it effective without a problem. Sedera needs a little bit more time. They actually liked everybody enrolled by the 20th. So we're probably for Sedera looking at June.